Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period revealed that there is likely something big coming for Kent Hughes, talking about the draft and how he'd be 0% surprised to see a certain type of huge move. We have to dive into this recent quote, plus an article from Stu Cowan on how Montreal's culture is changing so much and how players are going to eventually want to come here as a destination. I think it's happening already. And finally, we got a little preview of the Habs Canucks game. We got a bunch of great stuff coming up on this episode of Habs Digest, and we're going to dive straight into it, Jesse. And I want to start here with just a little look at the lines. Now, if you're watching this during after the game, there will be timestamps for the other stuff, but you might be watching it before, probably a lot of you. The big thing here tonight, Jesse, is the addition of Joshua Roy with Patrik Laine still out with the flu. Was coming in, playing on the second line, but the forward lines are also a bit shaken up with Brendan Gallagher going to the second line. Now, I know there's been some talk about Owen Beck recently, and that might be another topic for another video, as there's been a lot of praise from him and drive coming from him himself. But to see Roy debut again, well, coming back, to be on that second line, to be with these shaken up lines, a lot of people are saying it's his last chance. I don't think I'll go that far, but what are your thoughts on what Marty St. Louis is putting out there tonight?
With Patrik Laine out, we got another sniper waiting in the wings. Joshua Roy might not be at the caliber of Patrik Laine, but this is a huge opportunity for him to prove himself. Again, the leading scorer for the Laval Rocket. You have to feel like this is a guy that plays well with other good players. And really the thing that he has to know, Joshua Roy, coming into this lineup, is he's being brought up for the offense. That's what they're looking for. That's why they sent down Beck. They're bringing him up. So I like to see him getting an opportunity in the top six, knowing that he's coming to really showcase the best part of his game. Because for Joshua Roy to be effective, that's what kind of makes it difficult, is he really needs to be in that top six because he's not a bottom six type of player. Will he be able to really have that skill, or, maybe he can kind of carve out a role in a third line, but ideally he plays very well with skilled players. It really is what brings out the best in him, like we've seen with Connor Bedard. But again, this is going to be a big one for him because Beck, he's been talking a little bit of smack. He's saying I believe I can be the the second line centerman that this team is looking for, which is absolutely wild to hear. You have to feel like Joshua Roy will be motivated coming into this game as well.
I love that. The two prospects, the two boys who are probably the two highest touted prospects in Laval, minus maybe Reinbacher. You could argue Mailloux as well. Regardless, the two highest touted forward prospects, I would say, down there. They're going to want to have some competition with each other. And you're absolutely right. The talk from Owen Beck, this dude knows his potential and he's dedicated to seeing it hit. But, to be sent down, I think that's going to be motivation for him. But straight up, like we said, Joshua Roy, 20 goals in Laval this year. This is relevant not just for this game versus Canucks, but for down into the future. As Montreal, look, we're clawing, that's the word, clawing away towards a playoff spot. We're 4 points back coming into this game tonight. Now, this will change after the game, but again, you need some scoring. You need some goal scoring. You can see the goals for there. We're below the Rangers. We're below the teams ahead of us, minus Ottawa. So some goal scoring for Roy is going to be big. Let us know what your thoughts are on Roy on the second line. Hey, before or after the game, we'd love to hear from you. But let's move on, Jesse, to some other stuff. And I wanted to highlight something. Now, there was an article from Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette. I'm going to link it down below. I'm going to show you just a quote that was taken from it. But please go read it. It's a fantastic article. As you know, please give Stu the credit he deserves. He does some great work. Want to show this. So the first thing he mentions, now this is a quote not necessarily from the article, but from when Kent Hughes went and got Laine. He said, "We talked a lot about culture, what we're trying to build, and how we're trying to treat the players and everybody that works in the org, and what we expect in return from everybody that works or plays for the Montreal Canadiens, and the part that they have to do to contribute to that culture." We spoke to Patrick about that. So this was a big thing, Jesse. Now, we knew the culture between signing these extensions below captain Nick Suzuki. That's been a big thing. But in this recent article, Stu actually asked Kent Hughes about this recent Evan signing, and if that's a message to the rest of the team about, this kind of culture, Evan signing for below market value. I hope, whether it's Jake making that type of decision to stay here, not go to the open market, or just word of mouth from our players that are here, that's a part of the decision that we make. And to hear how far the culture has come from just a few years ago in terms of salary, in terms of the camaraderie between everyone, what we saw a glimpse of with these contracts, the Slav extension, to bringing Laine in, to being part of this culture. We knew Laine wanted to play here, to now hearing Kent say this kind of thing. Yeah, I hope this is affecting the players. It's really been a whirlwind to see how much things have turned around. I'm just so excited to see this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you definitely have to feel right now it matters that Kent Hughes, that he's a man of his word, that he's saying to Nick Suzuki, hey, if you guys are really there at the trade deadline, that we're going to keep this team together. Jake Evans wanting to stay in Montreal, it really matters, right? And I think that there's a lot to be said from what Kent Hughes says, where it's like, we want to treat people well, but also what we kind of expect from them in return. And I think that the leadership for this organization, Marty St. Louis has been a big part of that with a younger team. But I really feel like it starts with Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon. I mean, especially Kent Hughes, because he's the one out in the spotlight and often laying down these company lines here where it's like, we're going to treat people well. We're going to invest in you. But because we're investing in you, we're going to kind of expect you to kind of perform as well. So he's kind of showing a little bit of that growth mindset. I think a little bit of that accountability, which I think is important sometimes to really get results. He comes from the business world. He definitely kind of understands that. I think he's bringing that to the Montreal Canadiens in a lot of ways as well, which I just find it is so huge. Like, so many great things are shaping up. We got the great young talent. We got the culture. We're getting the superstar kind of elite level players coming in. Just all these things kind of coalescing, I think, is the making of something truly special.
It really is something special. And every single day we see it manifest itself, whether it's with players praising the Montreal Canadiens. We're hearing that more from players outside the org than I can pretty much ever remember. People always consider Montreal like the mecca of hockey. That's where you go to play. The Bell Center is amazing. I feel like we're hearing it more from other players around the league. Management teams, people loving what the Habs have going, compliments to Marty St. Louis. Every single day it's getting better, and I think you're bang on with that. Kent Hughes from the business world, he brings a very unique perspective, and cannot wait to see how this goes in the future. But speaking of the future, look, we got lots of trades. I feel like I always say speaking of the future. We always talk about it because the future is so bright for this team. Why would we not? Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period, I'll link the article, I found this in down below as well. He had some interesting stuff to say on a morning radio show talking about Kent Hughes and the Habs, and I want to go through some of the quotes. He said, I fully expect the Habs to do some more type of deals around the draft time in LA. Not like last year, because last year Patrik Laine was much later on in the summer, but the previous two drafts, they got Alex Newhook, they got Kirby Dach. And the big thing he went on to say, I would be 0% surprised if they try to pull off something again, maybe a little bit bigger, a little more impactful around draft time in LA in June. Now, this is something we've speculated on, Jesse. The draft is always that kind of time of year where we're like, I think Montreal can make a big move. But this year especially, considering we have such a plethora of picks and such a much better prospect pool now than we've had in the last two drafts, we can afford to move on from maybe some of the mid-tier prospects that we may have been more hesitant on in years past. More draft capital, more young players. We have some NHL level talent that could potentially be thrown out there as trade bait, maybe need a trade of scenery. Right now, all in signs point to Montreal making a big move, probably specifically at the draft. This doesn't necessarily just come from nowhere. I think the draft, as opposed to even free agency and later on like Laine, will be one of the biggest days for the Montreal Canadiens that dictates the future.
Yeah, the excitement is starting to get really real. It's the worst kept secret in hockey right now that we know that just Kent Hughes is coming out swinging when it comes to this offseason. And that's what makes us really excited as Habs fans, as media covering the team, because look at how they're performing, being competitive. Right now they have a winning record at 30, 27, and 6 with a young and incomplete hockey team. Now, just imagine when we're really adding to that, when we're getting a little bit more mature, when we're adding those, high-end skilled players to this team as well. Like, that just goes to show of like where this team can really start to take off. It was all about kind of getting that foundation. And I think, kind of because they know also in order to bring in those star players, they're going to need to win the games. They're going to need to do a little bit of work on their end. And I believe like this season, they're putting up like a solid body of work no matter how it ends up. Of course, we want those playoffs. That this team is somewhere where teams can develop. And I believe that other players around the league right now, they're definitely starting to see the potential.
Exactly. Like, you know what, one big implication of this that I haven't really thought of yet? A lot of teams have Canadian teams on their no trade list, right? Just for whatever reason, especially American players. Would it shock you to hear that certain players would waive their no trade to go to Montreal, whether it's a full no trade or even a modified no trade? Because, like, again, that's part of the culture thing we were talking about. And it just opens even more doors for Kent Hughes, Jesse. Like, I don't know. At this point, I think we're both in agreement that the player that Montreal is going to trade for is probably not one that's actively named on the trade market. Like, we're talking the Zegras of the world. We're talking, like, Cousins is gone. Like, at this point, it's like, all of the guys we were talking about, Mittelstadt, Zegras, like even Nemitz is not having a good season. No, it's going to be someone else, and it's going to be someone that is going to, I don't know. Do you think I'm getting too excited for this, Jesse, or do you think it is going to live up to this hype?
It's going to for sure. I love the names that we're hearing being circulated. Even some people are bringing up like Pavel Zacha. Okay, he's got some upside, but is it just Pasternak that's kind of bringing up his production? Like we're hearing some great suggestions. The live last night was absolutely phenomenal for that. And we need to kind of put on our thinking caps when it comes to this. Think outside the box a little bit here too. Again, we can't rule out those ones, even though that's a tough get. But we know Hughes, he always kind of thinks outside the box a little bit. So one thing is, we have to be prepared to be a little bit surprised, come this offseason.
Oh, I can't wait. Like, I don't know. You can see the smiles on our face when we talk about this. Because, like, not only are we in a playoff push, like you said, it's the worst kept secret in hockey that something big is going to be going down this offseason for the Montreal Canadiens. And Kent has made that, honestly, maybe, no secret. It's been unbelievable. Let us know your thoughts on all this down below. The recent quotes, who you think Montreal is going to go after. We'd love to hear from you, but that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.